Cancer Spiritual Lessons. Learn about the sign and how to use the lessons during the month of Cancer. Video by Dr. Lisa Love. This video provides educational background that complements the Cancer meditation video and Cancer Miss Ray's Planets video from Soul to Spirit. The video informs us how Cancer energies are received at 3 different levels: personality, soul, spirit. Attempt to receive them at the highest level. The video is available to the public during the month of Cancer, then goes back into the Soul to Spirit archives at patreon.com/Soul to Spirit. Every year, our Earth goes around the sun. And around the beginning of the year, which we call the New Year, January 1st through 5th, the Earth is closest to the Sun. It is at its closest helion to the Sun. But throughout the year, the Earth moves away from the Sun. And at the time of Cancer, June 22nd to July 22nd, the Earth is actually the farthest from the Sun. We see it over here. It is at the Earth's epihelion, farthest, epi, from the Sun. And note, this video uses the signs based on the seasons and not the constellations based on the precession. And what we learn in esoteric literature is that as the Earth goes from Capricorn to Cancer and then back to Capricorn again, in the phase of Capricorn to Cancer, there is a descent of light. When the Earth is closest to the Sun, it receives a great deal of light, factually. But that light is said to descend through different levels until it reaches Cancer. Let's look briefly at that now, starting with Capricorn. And that is where we learned it was about the light of initiation. Something new happens at an initiation. There was a new blast of light, as if the Sun was communicating to our Earth, this is the theme for the year. And that blast of light registers on what we call the logoic or monadic plane. And so that initial blast of light, that information packet, so to speak, was received at the highest level that exists on our planet. Our Earth is closest to the Sun. Light is born on our Earth's highest logoic plane. Now points of light, monads on the monadic plane, absorb this light to help expand the consciousness, to cause initiatory breakthroughs for the masses of humanity in the coming years. But so far, only those that are at the highest spiritual level are really understanding the message of this light. In the month of Aquarius, that starts to descend. It becomes light shining on the Earth, and it goes down into what we call the Atmic plane. Now these monads, these points of light, carry that light into the Atmic plane, and in this model, that is the plane of the archetypes and not the absolute, as the Atmic plane is known as in some systems. These archetypes then take that point of light and shape it into like fixed ideas. Aquarius is a fixed air sign, fixed ideas, and those ideas then begin to shine forth on the Earth. Then we go into the month of Pisces, and we have the light of the world, and things move down into the Buddhic plane. On the Buddhic plane, these archetypes are now infused with Christ, Krishna, Buddha-like love and devotion, creating receptivity to the new. We need the masses to start to have a field of receptivity, that field of love, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness. Bonds to the old way of being are also compassionately being broken, allowing the new light to spread throughout the the world. That's why sometimes Pisces is ruled esoterically by Pluto, a death sign, and we see the idea of cutting the cord between the two fishes or bringing the two fishes together in a kind of yin-yang unity of Christ consciousness. Then the light descends in the month of Aries down more, so the masses are increasingly receptive to it, and it becomes the light of life. It is now on the mental plane. So most people on the spiritual path that have a mental body are now receiving it. They are beginning to grasp and understand the ideas. Those little plants that were in the ground now come up, they spring up as a little shoot for most people who have some mental awareness of it to see and understand. As the light descends to the mental plane, our logos planet seeks out life forms of the mental capacity to turn these archetypal ideas into concrete thought forms that rule on the mental plane so the good of all can be served. And those who are on the spiritual level are beginning to more easily grasp what's going on than those that are on the high levels spiritually. And they are beginning to create the thought forms that will be communicated to the masses in the month of Aries. And then in Taurus, we have the penetrating light of the path. That brings the energy down to the emotional plane. On the emotional plane, the desire to manifest these thought forms intensifies. But if we don't stay on the path of light, wrong or distorted interpretations of these new thought forms will start to occur because desire is starting to come in. The masses are starting to comprehend what's going on. Those who don't have pure hearts or the best motives are starting to comprehend what's going on, and they're trying to distort the meaning of these thought forms, and that has to be avoided so the illumination from Taurus can remain. In Gemini, the light of interplay, these ideas are now on the etheric plane. These thought forms are being distributed through the ethers, we could say through the internet, through the ideas into the masses. On the etheric plane, this light creates seeming opposition. As these two interplay, will the old cooperate with the new or deflect and disperse the new in such a way the archetypal intentions are overly diluted? There we have our overview, and now we will arrive at Cancer. Cancer is the light within the form, the diffused light of substance itself, the dark light of matter. It is the light awaiting the stimulation coming from the soul light. Esoteric Astrology, pages 329 to 330. The light that was born in the month of Capricorn is now reaching the masses in the month of Cancer. They are now seeing or grasping more what is really going on that began at the cycle of the new year. Now it is up to those who are operating from the level of soul or spirit to help the masses respond in the right way to this light so that the dark matter in everyone's brains becomes more receptive to the light. Now that we have the overview, let's look at how this energy impacts us if we're operating at the level of personality, soul, or spirit. Because whatever level we're at determines how we're using Cancer energies, if we have Cancer heavily emphasized in our lives or during the month of Cancer. Cancer is the sign of impact, when the idea hits the physical plane. And that creates a sense of opposition. That opposition starts in Gemini on the etheric plane, but intensifies in the month of Cancer. And we can look out in the world during the month of Cancer for what is the impact that we start to see physically around the world, in our lives, and if you have Cancer, especially in your life or a Cancer country. As the masses are impacted by an increased flow of light into their brains, they are finally able to conceive or comprehend to some extent the new archetypes and thought forms that were created and given desire and vitality during the past 6 months by those operating on soul and spirit levels. If we're operating at the spirit levels, we pick it up and start to shape it into the archetype and infuse it with the Buddhic plane love. If we're operating on the soul levels, we are the ones that are creating the thought forms and trying to prevent the distortion in the month of Taurus so we can keep the illumination so people desire things at the right level and the distribution through the etheric network remains true to the archetype. But as the masses become conscious of these new thought forms, they intermingle with old beliefs. Remember, the polarity was set up in Gemini. Ideally, space is made by the masses to house the new realizations in a harmonious way. But that remains to be seen. Cancer also represents the quality of the waters. Within the dark light of matter or substance or our brains, samskaras, as they are called in Eastern spiritual traditions, exist. Samskaras are the latent karmic tendencies, the previous conditioning already within the matter, for better or worse, before the impact occurs and the new life is conceived. That's what creates the kind of duality here between the old and the new. And the quality of the waters, those samskars, will condition the receptivity to the new. In a Cancer person, during the month of Cancer for the entire planet, for a Cancer country, begin to look and observe these kinds of things occurring. The new life is also conditioned by the waters of life or the overall psychic atmosphere that exists. That's kind of like the amniotic sac or fluid that the new life is trying to grow in. I'm here at the physical level, these new ideas, but how are they being opposed? How are they being distorted? What are the waters like that I have to grow up in? And we'll see that especially during the next 6 months as our Earth goes back from Cancer to Capricorn and heads back to the new year and the sun. These waters are like clouds surrounding the dark matter. That could be clouds of a galaxy, solar system, planet, the overall human race, or a human that the new life grows within. And on the lower levels, those clouds, so to speak, could represent many glamours, distortions, and so forth. So something new is happening in the month of Cancer that the masses are now aware of. And naturally, that's going to cause anxiety, worry, fear, stress, because we're not quite sure what's this impact about? What's it going to lead to? What's really going on here? As the new is recognized on a personality level, Cancer, or the masses Cancer represents, feel a mounting anxiety that change is coming. And note, this can also be true of a Cancer individual or country. This anxiety can feed a sense of resistance to the new that feeds a desire to abort or sabotage it. The notion of aborting what is new causes conflict because Cancer is the sign of conception and, as we'll see, nurturing. This paradox of wanting to abort something while wanting to protect it intensifies at this time of year. And if it's been overly distorted in the months of Taurus and Gemini, we also have to discern in the month of Cancer, is this really what's new that we need to nurture and keep? Or is this something that's been distorted in such a way we may need to abort it? Remember, we're at the personality level here. And so there's a lot of ambivalence because we can't quite see clearly what's going on here. The ambivalence about what is coming into manifestation increases emotional sensitivity and uncertainty. In response, the personality cancer acts out of instinct, drawing insight only from the conditioned waters of the past. It only sees the potential of what's happening through its old conditioning. This instinctual response prevents the ability to intuit or see clearly the positive potential of what the new is trying to bring. And if we're working at a soul or spirit level, we're working very hard to see what is really going on, get through the clouds, see the old conditioning and the reaction of the old conditioning, and help move beyond that to see that positive potential. Again, we're working from the personality level where the energy is being received there. And we can also find clutter. When the future is uncertain and the personality cancer lacks the ability to adapt, the personality cancer clings to the known, even if what is known does not serve them anymore. They'll cling to the past. And clutter is the result. Clutter really begins with the mind's competing thoughts and unresolved traumas from the past. When mental clutter is combined with a materialistic identification with the body in the physical realm, it may also result in physical clutter. Now, with all this clutter, there is no space for the new to take hold in the right way. So we really have to be clear about what this clutter is about so that does not occur. Clutter in our minds, clutter from clinging to the past, clutter from hanging on to the old stuff. And so the personality cancer or country makes a choice. It decides the way to deal with the coming in of the new is to try and block it out or become the isolationist. When the personality cancer is unsure about handling a new life coming in and is not willing to abort it, or is trying to abort that which shouldn't be aborted, the next step involves trying to control the psychic field surrounding the developing life so that life responds to the old patterns and not the new. One way to do this is to build a wall to keep the new away from oneself. We don't want it anymore. It's too overwhelming for me, so I'm going to stay in my little cancer shell. And this leads to the personality keyword, which I hope you're understanding more now. Let isolation be the rule, and yet the crowd exists. The crowd of everything that's out there, the new, those other people, those other ways of thinking, they may exist, but I want to protect myself from it. Let isolation be the rule for my life. And that quote comes from Bailey's book, Labors of Hercules, page 210. Sadly, the more walled off the personality, cancer, or country gets in their thinking, feeling, and ways of expressing, the more darkness and delusion increases. Living in a bubble, cancer doesn't realize that the seeds of the new cannot ultimately be suppressed. The new will break through, especially if it represents a more expanded and inclusive consciousness. Now, at the personality level, Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon is influenced by the fourth ray of harmony through conflict because the moon represents the volatile nature of the emotional body that tends to go up and down with the tides. We have emotional highs and lows when we're overly influenced by the moon. These emotional responses result in mood swings that make the personality Cancer overly sensitive at best and erratic and unstable at its worst. Now, since the moon is not really a planet, but a satellite of the Earth. In esoteric astrology, the moon is always said to veil another planet, and here the moon veils Neptune. At the personality level, Neptune stands for delusion. When an overly reactive emotional body has a delusional approach to life due to over-identification with the form and a more material versus a spiritual approach to life, the personality cancer can become dangerous and harmful when its existing way of life is threatened by the new that is beginning to emerge. So we've just gone through the personality impact. If you're seeing this play out in the world, in a country, especially one ruled a lot by cancer, in cancer people, it's because they are receiving these energies at their level of consciousness, and that consciousness is not yet very evolved. So let's look now then what happens if we're coming from the level of the soul. How do we receive the impact of energies at that level, either in our lives, especially if we have a Cancer influence somewhere, or at this time of year in the month of Cancer? Well, Cancer at the soul level is really about mothering. At the soul level, our response to this new impact differs. Like a mother, we seek to understand and care for the new child or thought form given to us. We're less concerned with ourselves and more concerned about the other, calling in the nurturing and protective energy of the mother. The wise mother, after all, is willing to be with the immaturity and naivete of her child in a patient and loving way. She's willing to make sacrifices to get her child through the awkward stages of selfishness and immaturity until the soul blossoms forth in the child. The soul-centered Cancer understands this and becomes dedicated to helping the new in a patient and loving way until it spiritually matures. Acceptance. One of the reasons the soul-centered Cancer is better able to accept the new, even if it seems different, is because there is an appreciation of variety and difference. In Capricorn, which rules the mountaintop where almost no life exists, there is little variety. But in Cancer, that rules the land and the ocean, notice how the crab exists in both, that rules Cancer, the crab, life is more varied in the land and the ocean than anywhere else. To accept variety, however, the soul-centered Cancer must draw from a deep well of knowing who they and others are as a soul within a form. Only then can the multitude of life forms be valued. Earth Mother. To truly love each other spiritually, we need to see the soul in all and offer them the unconditional love of the mother. At the same time, intelligence needs to be combined with love. If the soul-centered Cancer is going to guide others to see that they are souls as well. This leads us to the soul keyword. I build a lighted house and therein dwell. And that comes from Labors of Hercules, page 210. Instead of building a wall and becoming an isolationist at the personality level, we want to expand the consciousness, the light, so that the bodies, the brains, the dark matter can house that new level of consciousness. That new level of consciousness can dwell in it. So whether it's that we're at this time of year making our house lighter or our brains lighter through meditation, or we're helping to light up the consciousness around us, that is part of the soul work going on here. When a house is lit, again, it is conscious. When we are conscious, we are more motivated to respect all forms that spirit lives in, treating these forms, our bodies, families, country, the earth, well. At the soul level, then, we don't have the moon veiling Neptune anymore. Neptune is giving us more of its direct impact. At the soul level, Neptune, a planet influenced by the sixth ray of idealism and devotion, becomes the ruler of Cancer. Neptune now stimulates the urge towards spiritual life by presenting the ideals of spiritual living that Cancer becomes devoted to manifesting. So again, we can see this in somebody that is Cancer at a soul level, that is a Cancer country at a soul level, or each one of us during this time of year can lift the energy to a soul level and present the ideals for whatever these new thought forms or the impact we're seeing can lead us to help us expand our consciousness to build a lighted earth to benefit everyone. But what if we're really advanced? What if we're able to receive this energy at the level of spirit on the Atmic and Buddhic planes primarily? What will this energy look like and how will it be used at this level? One of the major things is empathy. As these spiritual ideals are embraced and lived by, the claws of the spirit-centered Cancer turn into two arms that hold, comfort, support, and embrace all life in a loving and intelligent way. The open instead of protected heart helps in the cultivation of empathy and understanding of oneself and others. And I want to highlight something because during the month of impact, we may see both stuff that looks really good and stuff that looks really bad. But when we're at the level of spirit, our arms can embrace both because we see the larger picture of what's going on here. And we're able then to come with a level of empathy for those that are acting in a more spiritual way and empathy for those who are not. And like a divine mother, we really want to guide those who are not forward in a better way if we can. Because at the level of spirit, our perspective is so broad. We're not just reading a page in the book of the overall play. We see the overall play. And even though at this time of year, especially during the month of Cancer, things may seem dark as the overall impact is revealed, we are able still to understand that this is all just part of the play, the Leela, the overall drama of life, and we're able to keep our equanimity as we observe what's going on. This empathy, this equanimity, helps us experience the world of manifestation as the divine play or Leela, as I just said, identifying with all types of expression. The spirit-centered Cancer becomes a divine actor, incarnating in any role within this vast cosmic play without losing their identity as spirit. So instead of the, oh my God, that goes on at the personality level with the moon as the ruler and the tides high and low, at this very advanced spirit level, we go, look at the drama playing out in front of us. Because there's a deep level, we know who we are, and life becomes a divine comedy approached with humor, love, and an extraordinary ability to detach when needed from any role that has been temporarily taken on. We don't get entangled and reactionary. We may not like what we observe. We may know it's not in accordance with the divine plan, but we're able to not become emotionally reactive so that we can continue like that divine mother to facilitate whatever we are seeing into its higher level of soul and spirit realization. And that's how we become the universal mother, kind of like the divine goddess. No longer trapped by or identified with matter, the spirit-centered Cancer moves freely within manifested life. Once again, the goddess emerges, but now that goddess becomes the lighted temple or house of spirit, allowing the God, spirit, and the goddess matter to live in harmony together. The two parts of Cancer are God and Goddess united at this level. And again, Neptune is the ruler at the level of spirit. Again, the sixth ray of idealism and devotion. But this shifts to a higher level because now we're able to hang on to or to represent or be Christ, Krishna, Buddhic consciousness. And the ideal is now to discover how to expand or light up the consciousness of all forms through whatever is going on so that all forms can house the maximum amount of spiritual light and love. And that's how we use this time, or a country that's incarnated as Cancer, or a human with a lot of Cancer impact, to become a more lighted earth. As more spirit-centered Cancers emerge, they will conceive forms that can increasingly create a lighted earth and embrace all forms willingly with their crab claws seen here in another representation. Expand your consciousness. Join our Soul to Spirit community and access teachings and training. Access nearly 300 videos, interact with others on this path, and get support. Receive ebooks explaining this teaching in detail. Get copies of charts to the model we use. Get merchandise given to those who qualify. You can join us at www.patreon.com/soul2spirit. Join for free or subscribe. And if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, share, hit the bell for alerts, and thanks for watching.